You might think that vineyards are planted on some of the richest, most fertile land around. Not necessarily. Winemakers often seek out poor soil, even rocky terrain. Behind the label at Calera Wine Company, one man's mission to produce wine on remote land few others would consider.
No one had the idea to plant up there at 2,200 feet above sea level. We're going to test some samples of a couple other blocks.
Josh Jensen is somewhat of a lone wolf in the wine industry, a risk-taker who gambled on an unusual piece of property for his winery, Calera Wine Company.
It's very non-fertile, very poor soil.
His story begins more than 30 years ago on a trip to France as a young man.
1970, I went and worked at the most famous winery in Burgundy as just a field hand, just a grape picker.
He learned the great vineyards of Burgundy have one thing in common: limestone.
My mentors in Burgundy all said, kid, when you get back to California, make sure you find limestone, because that's essential for making the wines this complex and age-worthy and unique.
But it turns out finding limestone in California is easier said than done.
There is no limestone at all in Napa County and no limestone at all in Sonoma County, not a speck.
There is plenty of limestone here, though. A vast deposit on a remote mountaintop near Hollister, California, about 100 miles south of San Francisco. The land used to be a limestone quarry. 30-odd years ago, Josh bought it for a Pinot Noir vineyard.
Here you've got some actual pieces of limestone, little golf ball sized rocks that have rolled down the hill from this deposit at the top of the hill. The entire top of this hill is a pure limestone deposit.
So from those kinds of rocks came a really great soil for your grapes?
That's the idea. The idea is that it makes it wonderfully suited for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and makes the wines very complex for some mysterious reason.
Josh isn't, well, joshing. He doesn't know why limestone is good for wine. Nobody does.
The grapes, for some reason, and therefore the juice and the resulting wine, have more complexity. Why limestone does it and not granite or schist or zinc or something, I don't know that.
One thing that is known about limestone, it makes for lousy soil. And believe it or not, lousy soil can make for great grapes.
There's an old saying in Burgundy that vines must struggle or must suffer. La vigne doit souffrir to make the best wine. They sure struggle on thin limestone soils without much organic matter in them.
Mind if I sample?
Please.
Oh, it's delicious. When you taste a grape, as opposed to like taking a sip of wine, can you taste the different nuances and the minerals or anything? Just tastes like a sweet grape too?
There are people who say they can, but I sure can't.
Good, because I can't either. It tastes delicious, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be able to pick anything specific
just tastes sweet.
Josh's property is home to an unusual structure that also appears on his wine label.
So Josh, this is your namesake.
Yes, this is the lime kiln, for which the Spanish word is Calera, that we named the company after.
How old is this Calera?
We're told that it was probably built on or around 1860, used as a working kiln for 20 or 30 years, after which it was abandoned. But it was very skillfully put together, as evidenced by the fact that 146 years later, it's still standing, even though it's only 4 or 5 miles from the San Andreas Fault.
And Calera is the Spanish word for lime?
Yes. Yeah.
Does it mean lime kiln or lime?
Lime kiln.
Grapes end up at Calera's Hillside Winery, built on an old plant once meant for processing, what else? Limestone. Here, Josh watches over his operation, his risky venture into winemaking long since come to fruition.
It was a big gamble for me, but of course, you know, when you're in your 20s or 30 years old, you don't realize how difficult things can be.
One thing's for sure, Josh doesn't take the easy way out.
I think it was a gamble, and I think it paid off.